Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and hearing that the US dollar has collapsed. Your first thought might be, well, at least my debt is gone, right? Maybe paying off your mortgage or student loans would suddenly be a breeze, or your credit card balances would disappear. But the truth is, it's not that simple. A complete dollar collapse would bring an enormous wave of uncertainty, skyrocketing prices, financial turmoil, and a profound loss of savings. While the idea of debt vanishing may sound appealing, the reality is far more complicated. But before we go into all the details, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth videos like this. To understand why, it helps to start with inflation. Inflation, at its core, is a decrease in the purchasing power of money over time. When inflation is moderate, it can actually benefit borrowers. If you borrow $100,000 today, and inflation steadily erodes the value of the dollar over the next 10 years, you are effectively paying back the debt with money that is worth less than when you borrowed it. This is why mortgages taken decades ago often seem cheap today. People may not realize it, but their monthly payments are being made in dollars that have already lost significant value due to inflation. To see how this works in a more extreme example, consider hyperinflation, the type of runaway inflation that has occurred in countries like Venezuela and Zimbabwe. Imagine hyperinflation so severe that a single cup of coffee costs $400, gasoline is $500 per gallon, and the median-priced house you bought for $300,000 is suddenly valued at $40 million. At first glance, your mortgage might seem insignificant compared to the astronomical costs of everyday goods. But here's the catch. Wages rarely keep pace with hyperinflation, and the economy itself may collapse. Job losses, shortages of basic goods, and societal chaos can make it impossible to even benefit from the reduced debt value. A currency collapse happens when a country's money loses value rapidly due to hyperinflation, loss of confidence, or economic instability. It is not just a theory. History is full of examples. Between 2004 and 2009, Zimbabwe experienced one of the most extreme cases of hyperinflation in modern history. The government printed vast amounts of money to finance a war and compensate for agricultural policies that drastically reduced food production. At its peak, prices doubled every 24 hours, rendering the currency almost worthless. The country stabilized only when it abandoned its currency entirely and adopted foreign currencies like the US dollar. Venezuela's experience is another sobering example. Beginning in 2013, extensive money printing to cover government spending, combined with falling oil prices and economic mismanagement, triggered hyperinflation. By 2018, the inflation rate had reached 65,000%. The government even attempted to introduce a cryptocurrency called the petro to counteract the collapse, but it failed to stem the economic crisis. Argentinians have also faced similar challenges. In 2019, inflation rates exceeded 50%, driven by high public debt, monetary missteps, and declining confidence in the peso. While Argentina has recently recorded periods of low or no inflation, the long-term effects on savings, wages, and debt illustrate the fragility of currencies and economic stress. So could this happen in the United States? While the US dollar is far stronger than the currencies of Venezuela or Zimbabwe, it is not immune to similar vulnerabilities. The US has been printing money at a rapid pace for decades to finance wars, cover government spending, and support monetary policy measures. Public debt has reached historically high levels relative to GDP, and political instability, coupled with global economic shifts, could increase the risk of a sudden loss of confidence in the dollar. One factor that keeps the US dollar strong is its role as the world's reserve currency. Countries across the globe hold US dollars to trade commodities like oil and gold, creating continuous international demand. Even if the US imports more than it exports, this artificial demand helps maintain the dollar's value. The biggest threat to the dollar would be losing its reserve currency status. While there has been speculation that nations might move away from using the dollar for trade, Global data shows that usage of the dollar in international transactions has actually increased in recent years, despite some decline as a store of value. Nevertheless, the possibility of losing this status cannot be entirely dismissed. If the worst-case scenario occurred and the dollar collapsed, the effects on debt would be complex. Inflation does erode the real value of debt, but it is not a guarantee of financial relief. For example, during Zimbabwe's hyperinflation, prices doubled daily. While this made the actual debt theoretically easier to repay, most people could not benefit because jobs disappeared, goods were scarce, and the economy was in chaos. Similarly, in Venezuela, hyperinflation theoretically reduced the burden of debt, but widespread unemployment, food shortages, and healthcare crises made repayment nearly impossible. Debt management during a collapse depends heavily on whether wages and salaries rise in tandem with inflation. If they do, borrowers can maintain their standard of living and keep up with debt repayments. In reality, during periods of hyperinflation, wage growth often lags far behind price increases, meaning the cost of living rises faster than income. Traditional savings are devalued and stock markets become volatile, further complicating personal finance. Additionally, credit reporting systems add another layer of complexity. Defaulting on loans can damage your credit score for years, making it difficult to borrow money even after the economy recovers. Understanding these risks highlights the importance of preparation. While a complete collapse of the dollar is unlikely in our lifetimes, taking proactive steps can protect your finances. Diversification is the most important strategy. Assets that retain value when the dollar falls include precious metals like gold and silver, foreign currencies such as the Japanese yen, the euro, the Swiss franc, and the Chinese yuan, and foreign stocks and bonds. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum offer a virtual alternative, though they remain volatile. Collectibles, including classic cars, artwork, coins, and firearms, can also hold intrinsic value independent of currency fluctuations. Real estate remains one of the strongest protections. Income-producing property provides tangible utility and will continue to have value even if the dollar collapses. Land and agricultural commodities are similarly essential. People always need food and shelter. For those preparing for extreme scenarios, off-grid living solutions such as solar energy, water sourcing, and sustainable food production can reduce dependence on failing infrastructure. Finally, barter items like food, ammunition, first aid supplies, blankets, and long-term storage meals may become essential currency in the most dire circumstances. Timing is critical. Waiting until after a collapse occurs makes it too late to accumulate these protections. The earlier you diversify and prepare, the stronger your financial position will be when, or if, the bottom falls out from under the dollar. This is not about panic. It is about informed preparation. Even in the unlikely event of a collapse, knowledge, foresight, and tangible assets provide the best defense against economic upheaval. In summary, while inflation can theoretically reduce the burden of debt, hyperinflation and currency collapse introduce challenges far beyond the math of repayment. Job losses, scarcity of goods, skyrocketing living costs, and financial instability often offset any theoretical benefits. The US dollar's current strength owes much to its global reserve status, but vulnerabilities exist, including high debt, money printing, political instability, and global economic pressures. Protecting yourself involves diversification into precious metals, foreign assets, cryptocurrencies, real estate, and even practical survival resources. While the chances of a total dollar collapse remain low, preparing for economic uncertainty is a prudent approach. Being informed, proactive, and diversified is far more effective than hoping debt will simply vanish. By understanding the mechanisms of currency, inflation, and debt, and by strategically protecting your wealth, you can safeguard your financial future even in uncertain times.